Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Insights Now's Webinars Now course. Today, we're going to be talking about clean labels and how they're not just for humans anymore. This research that we're going to be sharing with you today comes from a piece that we did with our Clean Label Enthusiast community. Clean label enthusiasts are people who are seeking clean labels in all of their food. They're looking for, their behaviors, that they're looking at the labels, looking for ingredients, avoiding ingredients, et cetera, so forth. And so we did a deep dive with those people who had pets and were interested in clean labels for their pets as well. And so we wanted to understand just how much of the human behavior around clean labels is impacting their behavior around their pets as well. So we're excited to be sharing that with you today. So as a point of reference at the beginning there's on your GoTo webinar interface, you'll notice that there is a chat window and there's also a questions window. If you type in chat, I'll be trying to answer your chats as we go along. And if you have questions at the end, we'll pull up those questions and talk through those as well. All right, so with us today, aside from myself, I'm Greg Stuckey. We've also got Karen Lynch. And a little bit about Insights Now first. We're a behavior marketing research company, so everything we do is all focused on behavior. We primarily work in the innovation space, and our goal is to help you understand how to win the moment behaviorally and therefore win the market with new product innovation. And this research is no different. When we're looking at how people view pets and pet food, we're always bringing it back to, so what does this mean for human behavior? And what does that mean for innovation? All right, so to kick it off today, Karen Lynch, who is our Senior Director of Qualitative Insights, is going to be taking you through a wonderful case study that we did with our Clean Label Enthusiast panel. And take it away, Karen.
All right, thanks so much, Greg. Full disclosure, we were originally going to be doing this with a senior researcher on our staff, Amy Mahoney, who was actually kind of called away to head into the field on last minute notice. So I am stepping into the shoes that she was originally going to fill. So if you were looking for her, I hope you still get great content and you'll see her the next time she gets to present for us. So again, we were talking about trends in pet food on our discussion with Clean Label Enthusiasts, and what we are paying attention to just in the world in general is how human trends are becoming pet trends. So this is certainly intriguing to us, as Clean Label is a human trend of particular interest to us. But a lot of people are starting to incorporate some of these trends into the life and lifestyles and health and wellness of their pets. Human food trends are driving pet food product innovation. Foodie-inspired pet food trends are hitting the marketplace. Foodies, we're talking about foodie trends when we're talking about our pets. Clean Label, not just for humans, top pet food trends. So again, we're paying attention to Clean Label in general, and we really were curious as to how those trends in human consumption were trickling down into the consumption of our pets. So in our community, what we found out is that there's approximately 140 community members who feel it's very important to have a clean label in their pets' foods and treats and toys and care products. What we did was we asked a question pretty much, how important is a clean label in these categories? And we had several that rated it extremely or even slightly important for a clean label in these categories. We had done this work with some other categories as well, whether it was hair care or whether it was home care. So we did bring it into the pet care space. So again, just on this scale from extremely important to, unimportant on the other side, a 5-point scale. And we conducted this qualitative deep dive with those who said it was extremely important. So we curated from those 140 people a sample of 32 to understand a little bit more about their thoughts and their beliefs, and as Greg was mentioning, their behaviors, because we're primarily interested in their behaviors. And you can see the demographic makeup of who we talked to. It was about 3/4 of our population was female, and about 2/3 were dog owners, although we had some cat ownership in there. I can tell you we also had some random ownership of other pets as well, but we limited the conversation, if you will. We weren't really interested in understanding how people were feeding their ferrets, for instance, but we certainly had some ferret mentioned and a rabbit mentioned and a few other random pets as well. Again, we focused in on dog and cat food. And you can see the age spread, and we talked to people who had, little ones with an 8-week-old pet, all the way up to the oldest pet in our discussion was a 14-year-old pet. So we ran the gamut there. And here are some of the findings. Something that we're always interested in when we do these deep dives is, what is a clean label in the context of this category? We found that it differs, right? What a clean label in the food category means one thing, but what does it mean in the food of our pets when you have a clean label? And what people were defining it as was one that has familiar ingredients, recognizable, easily pronounceable, not dissimilar to what we find when we're talking about clean labels in the human food space. Also, one that contains natural ingredients, right? Not harmful or dangerous. We're looking to avoid toxins. This came up quite a bit in some of the other deep dives that we've done as well. So maybe, perhaps not a surprise, but certainly worried about that toxicity when it comes to their pets. And we'll explain why a little bit later that's so important to avoid the ingestion of something that's toxic or perceived as toxic. They also were seeking high standards for quality ingredients. They want to feed their pets the best. And so they're looking for some sort of a quality standard in their foods. And again, they want a short list, one that's not a long, lengthy ingredients, especially if the ingredients don't sound natural. We've learned in some of the other clean label work that we've done where, you might have a chemical sounding ingredient that's actually quite natural, but the chemical sound just puts people off quite a bit. So one of the keys that we found out in this conversation around how do you define a clean label was really starting to evolve the conversation around finding meat or fish as the main ingredient, chicken or salmon, for instance. A clean label was one that had those primary protein sources as the number one ingredient in the food. And then also people were looking to avoid meat byproducts or meat meals or fillers. So again, that came up in definition of a clean label. Those are the things that were making a label that's perceived as clean stand out as cleaner, if you will. You can take a look on each of these finding slides. I will have some quotes that we've curated from our community. A clean label is pretty much the same as it is for humans. No added ingredients that will harm them. A clean label means the best quality ingredients, no meat meals or byproducts, no artificial flavors or preservatives, meat being the number one ingredient. And then the third quote on this page, a clean label in the context of pet food and pet treats means no byproducts or chemicals added into the food. So again, perhaps not surprising information, quite consistent with what we might expect, but also just kind of starting to build the conversation that we had around a clean label. So let's take it a little bit further. The next question that we asked was really around the products and the brands that they're using. So we were understanding a little bit more kind of beyond just how they define a clean label, but what were they looking for in the brands that they were choosing? Well, again, one of the barriers that we find for humans in choosing clean label products all the time is price. So that did surface here a little bit. People would like to buy these more often, but price tag sometimes puts a little restriction on what they're free to purchase. And a lack of local availability. So some of these products they can't procure in their local stores, for instance. They're real specialty products that you have to buy either at specialty stores that may not be around them or purchasing them online. So availability is also a barrier. They're just not necessarily in the mainstream markets the way they'd like to see them. There is that, again, desire to see that meat, that protein, that chicken or that salmon as the main ingredients and a lack of contaminants or fillers. That's really a main driver in brand selection, is turning that label around and seeing what is number one. Is it protein, which makes sense for their dog or cat? They do prefer when brands are revealing sources of the ingredients, right? They want to see that this is an ingredient that is sourced in the US of A, right? It enhances their trust in a brand. And on the flip side, you can see some of the displeasers, if you will. The third bullet on that page, when we go to sourcing ingredients, China is a primary concern. There was some discussion around certain products that they knew that some of the added nutritional aspects, maybe a vitamin was not necessarily a US vitamin, but one that's predominant in China. So that raised a red flag for some people. In general, just trust around some mainstream brands, brands that have been around a long time that do have, labels that don't appear clean to people looking at them with this clean label eye. And then again, this idea that they might contain meat byproducts, fillers, or additives. So if you take a look again at these two supporting quotes, the one on the upper right, for non-clean label foods, I just think of the cheap mainstream brands like Iams or Alpo or Olroy. They're chock full of preservatives and artificial ingredients, things I can't pronounce. I do not use those brands because I don't think they're healthy for my dog. And then the one on the bottom here, this Blue Buffalo Wilderness reports show a low level of pesticides and BPAs. It also has a relatively high meat and protein content with named meats high on the ingredient list. Plus it's grain-free. I use this food often. So again, they're looking for specific things in their foods. When we boiled that down to an ingredient level, you can see right in the center of this slide, we have our massive list of what's considered clean on a label and what is considered not clean on a label. So you'll see long list of things are perceived as clean: free range, grass-fed, high quality proteins and whole meats. I look at this left side and I'm like, oh, it's pretty much like shopping at Whole Foods, yet for my dog. It's these whole ingredients, eggs, vegetables, fruits, even some vitamins. So when we talk about human trends finding their way into pet food, not just looking for omega-3s, but we're starting to shift to maybe looking for probiotics in our pet's food. And you'll see in the kind of the left column there what's perceived as not clean, if you will. Lots of artificial things, additives, chemicals, preservatives, these meat byproducts and meat meal, if you will. Some specific ingredients, maybe soy, maybe wheat. Looking at animal fats, I don't want those. I don't want toxins in GMO foods. So again, their list is growing for their expectations for what they'd like to see in a label for pet care. I'm looking over on the left to direct your eyes in that blue box on the left. There's some mixed feelings about some of the grains, right? So wheat was raising sort of a red flag in the not clean area, but corn and rice, it's a little less clear, right? So some people are considering them to be clean when they're in natural and whole grain form, but other people are thinking, no, in the wild, animals aren't necessarily eating a grain diet. They are carnivores, so I'm not quite sure how I feel about corn and rice in my pet's food. If you look over on the right-hand side of this slide with some of these supporting quotes, things pop up like, again, those meat byproducts. I love the middle of that quote on the top, God, and they spelt it that way beautifully. God only knows what leftover parts of an animal are mixed into the meat byproducts. They don't like to think about it. Even in the wild, carnivores don't eat the entire animal, and they instinctively know what parts they need. So they're thinking about, back to nature and what an animal would be like if it were a wild animal, even though we're talking about domestic pets. Again, if you look at the bottom quote there, protein like chicken, fish, bison, duck, venison, pork, salmon, eggs, beans, peas, lentils, legumes, all of those are acceptable. Think about, how animals were raised when I was a child and what they were being fed compared to the very curated special diet that some of these clean label enthusiasts would like their pets to be on today. It's really quite a dramatic change. Oops, where'd my cursor go? Here we go. What was interesting was we were able to dig into this deep dive into the world of claims. And we found that there were some beneficial claims I'll get to in a minute, but let me start off with the kind of stop sign on the lower right of this slide. There were many claims that were meaningless, things that were said that participants didn't necessarily believe anymore. They're starting to feel a little bit like, oh, everybody says them. They're losing their meaning and certainly losing their potency. Natural, wholesome, quality nutrition, premium ingredients, same formula for 10 years. They just, better than the leading brand. These didn't convey a whole lot of meaning for the clean label enthusiasts in our study. They don't trust the claims. They just were very blasé in their minds, if you will. Now, let me go on to tell you, we did not expose them to a list of claims. We asked them to share some of the claims, and we prompted them to not look at the labels and packages to do this, but what were some top of mind claims that had some relevance and did not have relevance. And this is where we netted out. So they're very familiar and highly aware of claims used in pet food. But again, some of the ones here on the right were just not beneficial for them in their minds. What they were looking for in terms of beneficial claims, again, grain-free. They're just not sure that their pets need to be on a grain-free diet, that no artificial colors or flavors, no preservatives, containing omega-3s. So there's things they're avoiding and things they're seeking. Omega-3s, they don't want to have soy, another thing they're avoiding. Meat as the first ingredient, another thing they're seeking. Organic and GMO-free, they're actually looking for those regulations in their pet food. And again, that USA sourcing. Now, if you look at the supporting quotes on this page, if you kind of look at it on a roller coaster, starting on the bottom right, and then we'll go all the way up to the top. Bottom left, and then we'll go all the way up to the top right. Made in the USA, organic, non-GMO, no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives are the top 3. I like the omega-3s being in there, but I can also add those at home. So supplemental use for our pets, fascinating, right? So maybe they're in the food, but otherwise they're just going to supplement with something else, maybe adding coconut oil to their pet's food or some other capsule, an omega-3 capsule, mixing it into dry food. I want to believe what's presented to me, so I try really hard to keep up with the news on pet food claims and what my vet has to offer me. They're taking their responsibility very seriously. We'll talk about that in 2 more slides, their role when it comes to the nutrition of their pet. Right there in the middle, there's a high level of disbelief for claims being made, but people want the best, so they want the claims to be true. So that's interesting, right? There's a little tension around believability and which of the claims they would like to believe, but they're skeptics. And then we move on, and there's, I have a lot of influence on my decision to purchase because I try to feed my pets food and treats with healthy ingredients to give them a long and healthy life without making them sick or contribute to any illness. So they're really taking, again, their role quite seriously. And then this top one on the right, again, all natural is always a claim that's bothered me on both human and pet food treats. That's such a vague definition of natural. It can mean absolutely anything, or absolutely nothing in terms of health. So again, that's where a little bit of that skepticism comes in when it comes to the claims. Here's what is important. We did an exercise with them where we ranked the importance of certain attributes, and you see what rose to the top in this bar chart. Authenticity, real food. It's really connected to what I talked about seeing that protein as the number 1 ingredient, if you will, that seafood or that meat protein, chicken or bison even, or venison. That authentic, real food is quite important to these particular clean label enthusiasts, followed by just nutritional benefits overall about the health of their pet, and of course a clean label. And you see that they want it to taste good. There's a quote over here on the right, the one that has sort of the tree in the background there, where the second sentence, it's important to provide good quality, healthy food that cats love to eat at a price that parents can afford. They all weigh in equally. Quality and healthy are most important, but are useless if my cat hates the taste and won't eat it. So that's really something to consider, where taste and price, they really is almost not relevant if the price is reasonable, if the pet won't eat it. That's a kind of a deal breaker. And you see the things that are not necessarily as important. Is it convenient to open and serve? Is it available for purchase near me? Is it not messy to eat? They're still important. They're just a little less important than the authenticity of the food or the nutritional benefits. So we have to factor in that cost, but we have to factor in what they really want, right? Which they're telling us pretty clearly. So at the end of this project that we did, we had some key insights. And I'll just kind of share them right now and then share them with the lens of, so what do we do with these? We'll talk about that next. Insight number 1. Clean label enthusiasts, pet owners are guardians that provide the best they can for their pets because they consider them family, and their role is that of primary caregiver. So in some of the work that we've done in the just pet food and pet care space, that's fairly consistent, right? But it takes it a little bit further. Read some of the bolded quotes here. I have the main role of the healthfulness of my pet, and it's my responsibility as a dog owner to make sure I make the best decisions for my girl. She's calling her a girl. The very last quote, I love my little girl, and I want to preserve the short life that she has for as long as possible. So if I think about this insight, it stems right into the next one, right? Insight 2, they want the dietary makeup of their pet's food to be as authentic and clean as their own because they value them as family members. They're calling them girl as if they're a daughter. People are looking to add to their pets' diets, enhancing their pets' diets, these high quality proteins, lean meats, vegetables, vitamins, probiotics. It's what a parent might want to add to their child's diets, right? So they're the guardians of their health. They're treating them like family members. And let's look at this last insight. Because treats are given much less regularly and aren't the primary source of nutrition for their pets, clean labels on pet treats appear to be less important than clean labels on pet food. And look at this. I don't pay close attention to treats as long as they are not super unhealthy and the cats love them. I look at treats as exactly that, treats. Treats are like human indulgences that we might treat ourselves with that aren't always the healthier choices, but we balance out with healthy nutritional meals otherwise. So now when I look at a page of insights like these, my mind as a researcher is, so what? What do we do with these? What comes next, right? We have these insights from our learnings. If we look at insight number 1 here, where we're looking at the role of a caregiver, maybe the next step, if this were something of importance, is to really personify the CLE caregiver. What is the persona of that caregiver in the clean label enthusiast pet owner? And I might want to bring that to life as a marketer and get all sorts of insights into that particular human consumer, if you will, of our products as the caregiver. Maybe in the second column, when I look at what the fact that these are family members and the desire for authenticity is, maybe I really want to do some of that claims work, right? To find out what does communicate authenticity, what will be a credible claim that is not alienating and doesn't raise that skepticism and that trust. So I might want to help sort of see, how do we communicate with claims the fact that we know that they are family members and we want to dial up that authenticity. And maybe with this third insight here about this human indulgences, this one really fascinates me because it's such a human word, indulgent. I don't think pets have the emotions around indulgences that we have, or certainly the discernment of being entitled to a treat or an indulgence versus a regular meal. So what do we do with that? How do we explore the world of indulgences? And is there a potential positioning opportunity with that to talk about treats as indulgences for our pets and really project some human emotions and human behaviors in the world of pets? So again, just a little hint of what we learned in the community and what some of those insights are. I'll turn it over to Greg to say what else as behavioralists we can do with this.
Right. Excellent. So aside from just seeking those clean labels, one of the questions is, well, what other human behaviors will also impact trends around pets? And so maybe our exercise behaviors, right? If our exercise behaviors, and if we're treating pets as family, maybe they're coming through into some of the product lines and opportunities we have for exercise may fit into our pets as well. Or what about our nurturing behaviors, the way we take care of family members? What are some of the trends in human nurture and infants that could be also applied to our pets? Or our socializing behaviors, right? Like beer for your dogs. If you're bringing up your dog as a family member and you think he's ready for a beer along with you in the game, is that something that we are going to see become more and more prevalent? We certainly know that it's a growing category. The question is, why is it a growing category, and how can we leverage that from the vantage point of human behavior? And then flip-flop that. Are there any pet trends, and I'd be interested to hear from anybody who's online here that's focusing in on pet trends. Are there any pet trends that might influence our human behaviors and become human trends as well? So that would be the reverse side of that question. So with that said, I think we're ready for Q&A time. So if you have any questions that you've got queued up, or if you have any comments that you'd like to make here, go ahead and type them into your question section or throw them into the chat there, and we'll take any questions you have at this point.
Thank you, Greg.
Sure, you bet. All right, so we see any questions that's coming through. Some people typing, typing away. All right, first question, maybe Karen, something you might be able to expound on a little bit more, is with regard to the insight number 3 and treats not being as, people not being as concerned about clean labels with pets, is it more, does that mean that there's more permissibility, if you will, to have ingredients that might be on the avoid list or the not clean list? Is that, is that really true, or is that just kind of lip service is what they're, I think what they're getting at here?
Yeah. Well, what we learned from these individuals is they just don't seem to be reading those labels to the same degree. They're choosing products in a different way when it comes to the treats. So they're being a little more liberal for that. I think one person in there, and I'd have to pull it up, but they, kind of told the story of shopping at Petco and just getting the Petco treats that kind of come in bulk, not really thinking about those labels because you're getting them in just a plastic bag, right? And it's something that's different. It's a reward for their pet, and it's not their primary source of sustenance, so they're just not as concerned with it. So I think it's worth, even this space of treats is worth exploring the idea of permissibility, because again, it's not a decision that the pet is making or seeking. It's a decision that's being made on behalf of the animals. So really interesting space to explore further even.
So interesting. So there's a behavioral component there that maybe people are not actually looking at the label as closely or even at all when they're looking at treats. So much more focused on front of pack labeling, positioning becomes a lot more important in that particular situation.
That's right.
Very good.
Yeah, and what we did with them is we asked them, the question about pet food and treats, but their default answer was always around the food. So we had to continually say, hey, what about treats? And they were like, yeah, just not as top of mind, right? Just not paying as much attention to the treats that they're serving in terms of the label, right? Really interesting.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Good. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions being typed in at the moment. So I think with that, we're good to end this one and let everybody know that our next webinar session is going to be Thursday, December 6th. And we're going to be taking a research-oriented approach to that one. We're going to be talking about getting more for less, taking creative uses and analyses for the check all that apply style questions to help make your questionnaire shorter and yet more meaningful. All right. Well, thank you all for attending. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Feel free to reach out with further questions if you have them. All right. Bye-bye.